You need to win this game, right?
That's the most important thing. We needed to win this game. And they started giving me the football.
Walter Payton exposed Emmitt Smith's biggest problem. November 20th, 1977, Soldier Field, Chicago. Walter Payton has spent the last 2 days in bed with a 101-degree fever, so sick he wasn't sure he could suit up. His quarterback, Bob Avellini, doesn't have a passing game worth mentioning. His head coach doesn't have a backup plan. The entire city of Chicago has one running back and nothing else standing between them and another lost Sunday. He suits up anyway. By the time the Minnesota Vikings leave the field, Walter Payton has run for 275 yards on 40 carries, a single-game NFL rushing record that will stand for the next 22 years. He did it sick. He did it against a defense that still had teeth, and he did it without a single other Bears offensive player getting so much as a sniff of a Pro Bowl vote that entire season. Teammates had a name for what they'd just watched, and it wasn't new. They called it Never Die Easy.
It goes beyond being a football player. It goes on to being a businessman, being a family man, being a leader in the community, being an example, being a role model. Those things are much bigger than just the football player.
The personal code Walter Payton lived by on every carry of his career. Never run out of bounds if you can stay in bounds. Never give a tackler a clean, comfortable shot. Make every single man on that defense pay a toll just for the privilege of bringing you down. On November 20th, 1977, sick as he'd ever been in his life, Walter Payton was still collecting tolls. That's not the craziest part of Walter Payton's story. It's just the coldest open we could find. Because 40-something miles away in football history, a kid in Pensacola, Florida, is about to grow up idolizing this exact running back, stitch his nickname onto his own Letterman jacket, and eventually break every record he just set. Emmitt Smith has the record. Walter Payton has the mythology. And depending on who you ask, those are not the same thing. Walter Payton didn't just outlast Emmitt Smith's mythology. He exposed the one hole in it Emmitt can never patch. Walter Payton exposed Emmitt Smith's biggest problem. Here's the problem. Nobody, not scouts, not stat models, not Emmitt himself, actually knows how much of that all-time rushing record belongs to Emmitt Smith and how much belongs to the greatest machine ever built around a running back. Here's the hot take that's about to ignite the comment section. Emmitt Smith had the greater career. Walter Payton was the greater running back. Emmitt became the all-time rushing king because Dallas built the perfect machine around him. Walter Payton became the all-time rushing king while often being the machine.
But Walter Payton, man, you can't, that's it for me. When I think of Chicago Bears, I think of Walter Payton. It's the best player to ever put on a football jersey, in my opinion.
That's the debate. And it's about to get personal, because these two men weren't just rivals. Let's get into it. The kid who had nothing. Columbia, Mississippi, July 25, 1954. Walter Jerry Payton is born into a family that didn't hand him anything. He didn't even start as a freshman running back at Jackson State. He split time as a kicker and part-time playmaker before the coaches finally turned him loose. No major Southeastern Conference program recruited him. Most weren't taking many black players from Mississippi in that era. By the time he left Jackson State, he'd rushed for over 3,500 career yards and set a modern college scoring record. Chicago made him the 4th overall pick in the 1975 draft, hoping he could replace the injured, retired Gale Sayers. And then the Bears handed him a football and almost nothing else. Chicago in the mid-1970s hadn't strung together consecutive winning seasons in over a decade. Payton walked into a rebuilding project with no timetable and no help. He didn't complain. He carried it, literally. That code you saw open this video, Never Die Easy, didn't come from nowhere. It came from his college coach at Jackson State, Bob Hill. who used to tell Payton that in football and in life, you never get anywhere by going down easy.
How do you go about conditioning yourself in the off season? What do you do to stay in shape?
I could explain it in one word, but then I know what you're going to ask me. You're going to ask me to explain it more. What I try to do is I try to kill myself.
Payton took it so literally, it became his signature. Lower his shoulder into a 240-pound linebacker rather than step out of bounds for a soft 5 yards. Years later, he chose those same 3 words as the title of his own life story. Never Die Easy wasn't a slogan for a highlight reel. It was the whole philosophy. Live every single Sunday for 13 years. From 1976 through 1980, 5 straight seasons, Payton led the entire NFC in rushing yards because the Bears simply didn't have another plan. And in that 1977 MVP season you just watched open this video, the numbers behind the fever game tell the real story. Chicago's passing offense ranked 21st in the league. Quarterback Bob Avellini attempted 9 passes in one game and completed 4 of them. Every single defense the Bears played that year had one job: stop Walter Payton. And for most of the season, they still couldn't. 1,400 miles south, a 5-year-old named Emmitt Smith had no idea any of this was happening yet. The 49ers game nobody remembers. Here's the scene that shows exactly what the whole offense really meant. September 10th, 1978, San Francisco. The Bears' passing attack is so thin that in the 4th quarter, quarterback Bob Avellini has essentially one read on 3rd down. Throw it to Walter Payton. Payton hauls in the pass himself at the 49ers' 1-yard line. The league's best runner also functioning as Chicago's most trusted receiver, before fullback Roland Harper punches it in to seal a 16-13 win. Payton didn't even get the touchdown himself. He did the hard part and handed the finish to someone else, because that's what the job required on a team with no other reliable options. That season, Payton and fullback Roland Harper carried a massive share of Chicago's offensive burden. The team still finished 7-9. That's not a knock on Walter Payton. That's the ceiling of what one running back can drag a franchise toward when nobody else on the field is helping him do it. Now hold that image. We're about to show you the exact opposite. The kid watching from Pensacola. While Payton was grinding through those years, Emmitt Smith was growing up fast. He rushed for more than 8,800 yards and 106 touchdowns at Escambia High School. At the time, the 2nd most rushing yardage in American high school football history. He idolized Walter Payton so completely that he put the nickname Sweetness on his own jacket.
I'd never, at that point in time in my life, I'd never seen a person with so much strength to face his situation the way he did. There he was, a man that was actually dying, encouraging me.
He went to the University of Florida, reached 1,000 rushing yards faster than any back in college history, and left early for the NFL. Dallas took him with the 17th overall pick in 1990, not even a top 10 selection. He held out through training camp as a rookie, then still won Offensive Rookie of the Year. The next season, he led the league in rushing for the first of 4 times. He wasn't handed the record. He built toward it for over a decade.
Look at the all-time numbers. We get it, Barry Sanders retired early, but look at the yards per carry. Now, I get it, Emmitt Smith, #1 all-time in rushes, rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns as well, but he played for an awfully long time.
Behind an offensive line, Dallas spent draft picks and money assembling specifically to make him the centerpiece. There's a wrinkle in that story worth pausing on. In 1993, Emmitt held out again, this time in a contract standoff with Dallas that kept him off the field for the first 2 games of the season. The defending Super Bowl champions started 0-2 without him. Everybody said Emmitt was a product of the system. Then the system tried playing without the product and nearly blew up the season before it started. He came back in week 3. Dallas turned it around and went on to win it all. The drive that proves the difference. Now here's the scene that proves the gap between their two worlds. January 30th, 1994, Super Bowl 28, Georgia Dome. The Cowboys and Bills are tied 13-13 in the third quarter. Dallas calls Emmitt Smith's number 6 snaps in a row. 9 yards, 3, 9, 7, 14, 5. The Great Wall of Dallas erasing the Buffalo front 7, possession after possession. Then Emmitt takes a handoff, finds a crease that was already blown wide open before he ever touched the ball, and walks 15 yards into the end zone. Cowboys win, 30-13. Emmitt Smith is named Super Bowl MVP. Same position, same sport, completely different job description. Walter Payton in 1978 had to be the one to catch the pass at the goal line himself, thrown by his quarterback, Bob Avellini, because nobody else on that Bears offense could be trusted to get there. Emmitt Smith in 1994 had a touchdown built for him before the snap even happened. Neither of those men chose the situation they were born into. But it's worth remembering exactly what each of them was actually asked to do before you decide who did it better. The Ghost and the Machine. By the time Walter Payton retired in 1987, he owned nearly every meaningful category a running back could own. 16,726 rushing yards, 110 rushing touchdowns, 492 receptions, and 4,538 receiving yards, both the most ever by a running back, and 21,264 yards from scrimmage, more than any player in NFL history had produced. He started 178 consecutive games, including the playoffs, the most ever by a running back, missing exactly 1 game in 13 seasons. That's never die easy in its purest form. Not a single missed start over more than a decade, because the man refused to let anything, including his own body, take a carry away from him without a fight. He even threw 8 career touchdown passes, a genuine trick play weapon Chicago deployed when they needed a spark. Before Emmitt Smith ever became the standard, Walter Payton was the standard the sport didn't know how to replace.
Once you put wisdom with will on top of talent, you get what you call sweetness.
Emmitt's case is not built on hype. It's built on results. 18,355 career rushing yards, still the record. 164 rushing touchdowns, still the record. 515 receptions. 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons, a mark nobody has matched. 4 rushing titles in 5 years. 3 Super Bowl championships. He's the only running back in NFL history to win a Super Bowl, the league MVP, the rushing title, and the Super Bowl MVP in the same season, 1993. In 1995, Smith posted career highs across the board: 1,773 rushing yards, a then-record 25 rushing touchdowns, and 62 receptions, powering Dallas to its 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years. 25 rushing touchdowns isn't a compiler padding a stat sheet. That's weekly violence with a scoreboard attached. And before we move on, the game most casual fans already know. January 2nd, 1994, against the Giants, everything on the line. Emmitt separates his shoulder in the first half and finishes with 32 carries, 168 rushing yards, and 229 total yards anyway. It's not the centerpiece of this video, but it's proof the closing argument label isn't just a nickname. And here's Emmitt Smith's biggest problem, the one his own resume can't answer. He was never once asked, to be the whole offense. Walter Payton was, for the better part of a decade, and he still outproduced almost everyone who's ever played the position. That's not a knock on what Emmitt built. It's a hole in the case that no touchdown total can fill. The night they met. Here's the part of this story that changes everything you just watched. Walter Payton and Emmitt Smith were not strangers keeping score from a distance. In 1993, they met face-to-face for the first time at the Doak Walker Award dinner in Fort Worth, an event honoring the nation's top college running back. Emmitt, the kid who'd worn Payton's nickname on his jacket since high school, spent the night peppering his idol with questions about preparation, training, life after football. Two Mississippi and Florida kids from completely different eras, sitting at the same table, talking shop like old teammates.
We talked about everything under the sun. We talked about the game of football. We talked about his career. We talked about his work ethic. We talked about his eating habits. We talked about his recovery habits. We talked about transitioning from the game, business, and all those things. We talked about family. We talked about not losing yourself. We talked about all of those things. And it seemed like a whole day, but it was probably a matter of an hour. But having a conversation with someone that you looked up to for so long, and to have that insight from someone that was the ultimate or the consummate professional was cool.
And at some point, Emmitt told him the plan. He wanted Walter Payton's record. He said it to his face, not knowing whether that would sound like disrespect. Walter Payton didn't flinch. He didn't get defensive about the number he'd spent 13 years building with his own body. He told Emmitt Smith, "Go for it. It's there for you to get." This was never a rivalry between two men fighting over a number. It was a mentor handing off a torch he somehow already knew he wouldn't be around to watch get carried all the way home. November 1st, 1999. Walter Payton never got to see it happen. In early 1999, Payton announced he was fighting a rare liver disease called primary sclerosing cholangitis. It progressed into bile duct cancer. On November 1st, 1999, Walter Payton died. He was 46 years old. Chicago shut down to grieve him. Thousands came to a public memorial at Soldier Field, the same stadium where he'd run for 275 yards sick as a dog 22 years earlier. Mike Ditka, the coach who'd finally given Payton a championship team to carry, once said Payton was the greatest player he'd ever seen, and even greater as a human being.
You didn't have to coach Walter. I mean, what you had to do for Walter is provide enough opportunities. You had to give him enough touches. You had to get the ball in his hand as a runner or receiver, and then he would make the other stuff happen.
His final months weren't spent chasing more records. They were spent turning his own diagnosis into a national campaign for organ donation, a cause that is still saving lives today because a football player decided his ending should mean something for strangers he'd never meet. Never die easy was the code Walter Payton lived his entire career by. He didn't hide from this diagnosis either. He didn't disappear quietly to spare anyone the discomfort of watching. His public fight helped bring national attention to organ donation and liver disease research. The disease is the one opponent in Walter Payton's life that finally brought him down. It never once got him to go down easy. The greatest running back a generation of fans ever watched didn't get a farewell tour. He got a funeral, 3 years before the record he built was even broken. The record he never saw. October 27, 2002, Texas Stadium. The Cowboys dynasty is already gone. Troy Aikman gone. Michael Irvin gone. Dallas, a losing football team, headed toward a 5-11 season. On an 11-yard run in the fourth quarter against the Seattle Seahawks, Emmitt Smith breaks Walter Payton's all-time rushing record anyway, finishing the day with 109 yards and a touchdown. Walter Payton's mother and his brother Eddie are on the field to watch it happen because Walter couldn't be. Play-by-play announcer Brad Sham's call still gives Cowboys fans chills. Move over, sweetness. Make a place for Emmitt. Smith broke down afterward, thinking about the man who'd told him years earlier, before either of them knew how little time he had left, to go get it.
Got a chance to share that moment with a lot of people. And I got to do it in the Cowboys uniform. There's not many things in the world sweeter than that.
Sit with that for a second. A kid who idolized a man enough to stitch that man's nickname onto his own jacket, grew up, earned that man's blessing to come take his record, and then finally broke it in tears on a losing football team, 3 years after the man who gave him permission was already gone. That's not a stat line. That's not a debate show talking point. That's just what actually happened on a Sunday in October in front of a losing team's home crowd that didn't even know it was witnessing the end of a promise. Now let's turn all of that into a verdict. The verdict. Walter Payton exposed. Emmitt Smith's biggest problem. Take a breath, because here's the honest answer to what that actually means. If the question is career resume, total yards, total rings, total hardware, Emmitt Smith wins. It's not close. Nobody is taking that away from him. But resume was never the exposed problem. The exposed problem is proof. Walter Payton spent 13 years generating his own proof on losing teams with no passing game, no blocking help, and virtually no supporting cast. And the numbers still came out on top of the sport. Emmitt Smith never had to generate that proof because Dallas made sure he never had to. He was never the only answer on a broken roster. He was never asked to be the whole offense for a single season, let alone 10 of them. That's the hole in the resume that no touchdown total can fill. Take Emmitt off the 1990s Cowboys and put him on those struggling late 70s Bears teams, and it's a genuinely open question how much of that record survives. Take Walter Payton and put him behind the Great Wall of Dallas, and it's hard to believe he doesn't break his own record before Emmitt ever gets the chance. And maybe that's the real point this whole video was building toward. This was never actually a fight between the two of them. It was one man handing a torch to the person he trusted most to carry it, and that person carrying it exactly as far as he was told he could, inside a machine Walter Payton never got to use. Final verdict. This is not a soft landing. This is a verdict. Emmitt Smith was the perfect engine inside the perfect dynasty. Walter Payton was the engine, the wheels, the frame, and 8 touchdown passes prove it. Sometimes the driver. Emmitt Smith broke the record. He just never got to prove he could have built it alone. If this one hit different, smash that like button and subscribe to Endzone Exposed for more NFL documentaries that go deeper than any highlight reel. Drop a comment below. Team Sweetness or Team Emmitt? We want to hear you argue it out. Walter Payton exposed. Emmitt Smith's biggest problem, and it's not his stats. It's the question his stats can never answer. Who is Emmitt Smith with the machine taken away? Walter Payton spent 13 years giving you the answer for himself. Emmitt Smith never had to. Walter Payton called his own life story Never Die Easy. 13 seasons, a 275-yard game with a 101-degree fever, 178 consecutive starts, a battle with cancer he refused to face quietly. He never broke that promise once. Endzone Exposed is where the truth always scores.